Hey everyone, welcome to this lecture. So in this lecture we are going to discuss regarding the Palo Alto Firewall version 11.x training. So basically in this lecture we are going to discuss regarding the basic configuration of your Palo Alto next gen firewall. So whenever you onboard Palo Alto firewall, either it's a physical appliance or it's a virtual appliance, you need to understand that uh, the process to onboard it and also the process to take the console of it and working with the management interface of that particular firewall. Right now, Palo Alto has given you a very important interface called as a management interface. Right, so like any other vendors like Cisco and other vendors like FortiGate or Checkpoint, the management interface is a common port which most of the vendors has, right? And basically it is going to segregate the functionality of control plane versus your management plane, right? So what do I mean is, for example, let's say that you have got here. All right, so the whole idea is to take or to understand regarding the management interface, right? So you have got something called as the MGMT port, or you can say the MGMT interface. Now this management interface or the management port, which is available in your Palo Alto, which is basically your next gen firewall, right? And it is also referred sometimes as out of band management. Generally you will find this term called as out of band management port, right? The reason because it is called as out of band management, because in production environment, right, your management traffic is always kept separate than your data plane traffic, or you can say your broad traffic, right? So you have got separate management plane versus separate data plane traffic. Also you'll have separate control plane traffic. Okay, so just to make you understand that, so Palo Alto has given you one out of band management interface, whether you are deploying this as a virtual appliance or whether you have got a physical appliance. So you have got a management port which you can use to onboard your firewall into your management network. Okay, so you can use that particular out of band management port as a as a specific management network. So we will actually do that. So that means you'll have got a Palo Alto firewall, right, and we will have this out of band management port which we will plug to your management network, your MGMT network, and on the management network you will have that admin PC which will take the console on that management interface, right, and perform the respective configuration task on this particular Palo Alto firewall. Now this could be a physical appliance or it could be a VM. It could be a physical appliance like PA, or it could be a virtual machine, right? So let's go back to your scenario here that I have. Just a second. Okay, so you see here that you have got a topology where you have got a couple of domains, right? So you've got a DC network on the left and a branch office subnet on the right. Okay, so the whole idea is on a DC network, you see that you have got some couple of end systems over here, like we have got a Windows 10 client, you've got a Linux client, you've got a Windows 2012 server, or probably a 16 server. You've got a couple of Palo Alto firewalls sitting on the edge, right, and they are connected over internal switch, right, and I'm using the DC subnet to be part of 10.1.1.0/24 private subnet, where from there I'll be associating the respective IP address and the default gateway to the respective devices. Okay, now let's concentrate on the Palo Alto firewall number 1 itself over here. Okay, so this particular firewall, it is going to do the power on self-test process once I power it up, and I will be configuring its management port initially. Okay, and I will show you the steps of how to do that. Now this particular firewall, as you see, it has got a link to inside over or a trusted network over Ethernet 1/1 interface, which will be having an IP address of 10.1.1.201 as an IP. The management port, it's connected to the management network. Okay, and it has got an management network of 192.168.1.0/24, over which the IP would be 8.201 at the host port. So 192.168.1.201/24 is the management IP of this particular firewall management interface. And on the untrust network, which is running through Ethernet 1/2, the IP that I've chosen is a public network, right, and it is 123.11201/24. Now you can see that I've got a setup where the outside or the untrusted zone is connected to a private WAN infrastructure kind of a setup, where let's say you have got an MPLS running, or might be a VPLS running, or some type of private network that you have onboarded, right, and and over that you can reach to either a second branch office over here, which is running on a subnet of 172.16.1.0/24. You can see that, and through that private network as well, you can, or the private WAN, by the way, from the private WAN, I can reach to that edge router of my company, and from the edge router I can reach to my ISP. Okay, so I'll show you the configuration that we will be performing on the edge router, what IPs you normally configure, and what are the various steps you should take to configure the edge router, and likewise. Okay, and we will be doing the other firewalls like PFW2 or PFW3, doing multiple configurations on those slowly, one by one. Okay, so let's talk about the initial task, which is basically configuring the management interface on this particular Palo Alto firewall number 1, okay, through CLI, and then we will see how to access the web UI or the graphical user interface on that particular management port from my administrator PC. Okay, so yeah, hope it is clear, the topology information. All right, so nowadays that you can spin up any Palo Alto VM in any of the hypervisor platforms. So you are using here EVNG, right? We are using here EVNG as a hypervisor platform, and over which I'm running those the virtual machines of Palo Alto and other virtual machines, like for example Windows client or Windows server, Linux server, etc. Right? So yeah, so by default what happens is when you power on this particular Palo Alto Firewall 1, so I have done this power on over here, and when you click on this, you have got this Ultra VNC which is opened up, and that's the console that I take once the device is completely powered on. So it will actually get an IP address from the DHCP server. So you can see that the management interface is plugged to the management network, right, and the management port by default it will the DHCP services is running on the management port, so it will take an IP address on the management port via the DHCP services, right. So but I want to configure the management IP statically, as I'm representing here that I need this Palo Alto firewall to have this management IP to be 192.168.1.201. so I'll configure that. So let's go and we will be plugging this particular interface to the management network, which we have done already. We have plugged the inside port Ethernet 1/1 on my trusted zone, Ethernet 1/2 on my untrusted zone, and the other interfaces I'll discuss later. So like for example, the functionality of Ethernet 1/5, 1/3 and 1/4, what they are up to, I will discuss that particular piece later. But as of now, you can see ETH 1/1, this particular is going to the trusted zone, and 1/2 goes to my untrusted zone, and MGMT is on my management network cloud. Okay, now my job, although it has got an IP address from the DHCP on the management port, but let's say I want to statically assign this IP address over here. Okay, now yep. So what we'll do is we will be configuring the DNS server on this particular Palo Alto firewall. We'll be configuring its default gateway as well, right? So make sure that the Palo Alto firewall should also have some sort of routing to reach to the internet. So ensure that the Palo Alto firewall, let's say it's got a static default route through the edge router to reach to the internet. So whenever it wants to update its licenses, or it wants to activate its licenses using its authorization codes, it can go ahead and do it, right? So ensure that the Palo Alto firewall can communicate to the internet world. All right, so let's take the console of it and let's try to log in for the first time. And so the default username and the default password is admin and admin. All right, so it will prompt you to change the old to change the password. So my old password is admin, and I'm supplying the new password of my choice. I'm just confirming that again, the new password of my choice. And sometimes it gives you kind of an error. It needs like sometimes in the management plane to get activated 2 or 3 times, where you can change the default password. But yeah, that's fine. So you have changed the password. Sometimes it might take 2 or 3 attempts to take a successful attempt. Okay, so the point is if I want to see my management PC, so the PC is on the management network, my base PC is on the management network, and it's on 192.168.1.0/24 subnet, right, from which I have taken the console of it. Now the point is I want to see what is the current status before I change the management IP to something else. So for that I can give one particular command, which is your show session information. So let's go ahead and do that. One second. All right, so over here you can just give show system information. I'm sorry for that. So system info, right, and when you hit enter, you can see what is the current status of your Palo Alto firewall. You can see what is the host name, what's the current IP address you have, it's 192.168.1.6. what's the default mask that you have, /24, what's the gateway, the IP assignment got allocated on the management port via DHCP, got an IPv6 link local address as well, the MAC address of the device. You can see the serial number is unknown because it is not yet licensed, so we'll do the licensing later. The model, it's a virtual firewall, it's a family of VM, it's uptime. You can see the base MAC address, etc, etc, right? You can see the UUID and the CPU ID, which is required for getting the license or activating the licenses, etc, right? Yeah, so you can see the different information that the device is actually providing to you. Okay, the OS version that it is running, it is the 11.2.0, the pan OS version. Yeah, so I think it's clear. So now your job is to set this particular firewall with its static management IP address of your choice, right? So to configure, all you need to do is type here the character called as configure. So that will let you enter into the configuration mode, and you will be able to statically configure the IP address that you want to change. Okay, so you got an IP address to DHCP, I know, but if you want to change that, you need to change it to static method first. That means you have to change the command with set device config system type as static, right? That is the first thing you should do. That means you are changing the system type to be static, then only you are going to have the capability to change the management IP as a static IP address. Okay, now you can use the following command to change the management IP. So just follow that. It is set device config space system space IP hyphen address, and according to my requirement on the management port, the IP is 192.168.1.201. okay, space net mask, and my mask that I want to apply is on /24. The default gateway which is on the management network is 192.168.1.1 in my case, and I want to apply the DNS setting servers, which is I'm going to define the primary server to be 8.8.8.8 and my secondary server to be 4.2.2.2. There we go. And then to make the changes, so currently all the configurations are there in the candidate config, and to make it to the running config on the device, we need to apply a command called as commit, right? So it applies into my running configuration from the candidate configuration, right? Then only the commands will be in effect onto my hardware or onto my platform. Okay, so let's go and apply the command commit, and let's wait for the job to complete, right? And then we can go ahead and take a look into the graphical user interface by logging into the management port. All right, and that depends upon the commit function, how long it takes. That depends also upon how much RAM you have allocated to your virtual machine. It takes some time, and it depends on, of course, on your physical hardware, as well as what particular chassis you are owning. If you are going with any high-end chassis, they will have a huge amount of RAM available, so the job that will take a few seconds. Yeah, so let's wait for this job to be done. I will tell you how does commit process work later. What are the there is a small information you should know regarding the commit process, so I'll tell you that later. Yeah, so once the commit process is done, then we will actually go and hit the management IP address using our favorite web browser, and here we go. You can see that the commit is configured or committed successfully. So now what we'll do is we will go ahead and we will access from my browser, which is my Chrome over here. I'm going to access using HTTPS my management IP, which is 192.168.1.201, and I'm getting this particular privacy error because of the certificate. So the reason is because our browser is not able to trust this particular website, and it is giving us that the certificate is not valid. So we will discuss this later, but the point is we can actually accept this particular warning, and we can proceed to this particular management IP, right? And you see that it is showing as login.php, right? On this URL it is showing as login.php. It means PHP defines it is running web services on this management IP address, right? So web services is running on this particular IP address. So yep, username, so let's log in. My username was admin, and the password, which I have changed, let's try login using that. There we go. So my session to the management interface is getting built up. Just wait for that. Okay, so now we will be also seeing, how to change that, right? From the, we can also access the management interface from the graphical user interface, or the GUI, right? Yep, so you have logged in and you can see the PanOS version is 11.2 over here, and you can just read across, what are the different, features that is available on this particular version. You can just go through that, read the different, telemetry information, and just read out that, okay, PanOS 8.0 has reached end of life on certain date, like Oct 31 2019, and it's no longer supported, etc., etc. Yeah, and certain new feature or new category called as ransomware is added to the advanced URL filtering category, right, with a content update version number. Yeah, so if it is not there, so ensure that you we recommend that you keep your default action set to block for this particular ransomware category. All right, so you can close those information. You can read the telemetry data and click on OK there. Yep, so you can see that by default, you are checking the dashboard over here. So the dashboard has got different information, so you can arrange that in multiple, structure, like 2 columns or 3 columns. So currently it is in 3 columns, right? You can see over here you can drag and drop this dashboard elements into any pane that you want. Yeah, yeah, so you can see there is general information pane or widget, right, where you can see the device name, the management IP address that is available on the device, the mask, the gateway, etc., etc., the CPU ID, UUID. So basically you have seen those information in the show system info CLI command as well. You can see some, who are the admins that has logged in, what are their source IP addresses running on their device to which they have logged in, etc., and the method they have taken to log into this particular device, and the timestamps across their system logs is available. Yeah, likewise, if you want to add any widgets, you can click on this widget column, click on applications and add the respective applications of your choice. Click on system, you can add, let us say, those system widgets of your choice. Let's click on interface, so the interface widgets gets added. Click on logs, you can add the different types of logs of your choice, for example, say threat logs, etc., etc., right? And we'll discuss this later as well, nothing to worry regarding this as of now. So I hope it is clear, how do you access the management port and how do you configure the management port statically on the device, right? Yeah, so similarly, if you think of deploying this firewall in a cloud platform like in AWS or in Azure, you'll also have the similar mechanism, to take the management IP access GUI if they're running on that platform as well, right? So yep, so let's do some configurations over here. So let's say that you want to change this particular management IP address. You want to change this management IP address from the GUI, right? So in that case, you can click on this device tab, the multiple tabs that you see over here, right? ACC, monitor, policies, objects, network, and device. So click on the device tab, where you can see that under the management you have got some information like the general settings information, right, which you can, if you want, you can change that by clicking on this particular gear icon. Okay, you can add host name. Let's say I add the host name as PAFW1, right? Yep, so add some login banners, time informations, etc., etc. Yeah, okay, so Panorama settings. Panorama is basically a centralized management platform through which you can manage, let us say, hundreds of firewalls centrally. So yeah, this is where you can add the Panorama settings, device certificate authentication settings, secure communication settings, banner and messages, lot of things, right? So under management, those settings are available, but you can just directly go to the interfaces over here, and you can see that you've got a management port. It is, the status is enabled for you, the IP address which you have set statically, and what services by default it is enabled on the management port. So you can see that ping, HTTPS, SSH, all these services are available on the management port. When you click on the management interface right here, you can see the speed that you can auto negotiate to and the MTU, which has been default defined, which is 1500 over here, and type is static, the IP addresses that you have configured. If I want, I can change the IP address to something else from here as well, but now according to my topology I want to keep the same IP. That's fine. You can see what services are available on the management port, like HTTPS, SSH, and ping, right? Those are there. And what you can do is you can now add any particular IP or a particular subnet, which is permitted to take the management port access. So let's say in my case I'm allowing only 192.168.1.0/24 network IP addresses can allow or will be allowed to take the management IP access. So it's my management subnet, okay, or you can say it's allowed management subnet IP addresses, right? So these are the source IP addresses from which the management IP is only allowed to be accessed. Okay, so you can click on OK there. So the point is, if you want, you can change the IP address from here as well, right? All right, so I think that's good as of now. So what you can do is you can go to, just a second, so you can go to the dashboard, right? And when certain physical interfaces will be configured, and you can see the IP addresses, they will lit up. Okay, as of now you can see that in the dashboard on the interfaces you see every icons are actually grayed out. It means that none of the interfaces are up or active as of now, right? You can see system resources utilization over here, yeah, and you can change this timers as well of this dashboard messages that you want to view, right? So a lot of things and upcoming that we'll be discussing. Yeah, so I hope it is clear as of now. I will see you in the next lecture with a lot of much more informations, and thank you for joining.